first time, Patrick, you're coming on the show. I really appreciate it, man. We're going to talk about Jackal Protocol today, which is really one of the only viable businesses that I've come across in Web3. But you're competing with Google, you're competing with iCloud, at least for in the minds of most people. Where do you think you have an edge here?
Yeah. So when you think about Jackal and what's like the North Star here, like where are we going? The purpose of Jackal in the first place is to kind of move the internet and kind of take back the internet where end users and businesses are self-custodial of the data. When you look at clouds in general and what is the cloud, it's someone else's computer. But in the current state of just SaaS, the current state in technology, this has caused a lot of issues when it comes to cybersecurity, digital privacy, and there's a few other things when we stack up against these competitors that Jackal has a really competitive edge. You can look at price, you can look at verifiable geo-distributed storage. We offer a lot of things that aren't offered right now, but it's kind of interesting because the value propositions are different for whoever is using it. If it's an individual, they might like the privacy and the security aspect. If
Right.
it's a business, they might not care about privacy or self-custody. They might care more about geo-distribution and verifiable storage and uptime and just being 200% cheaper, right?
I can't see myself needing more than, let's say, 500 gigs or a
Mhm.
terabyte of storage for like all the dumb pictures on my phone and all the dumb files in my Google Drive. What would that cost on Jackal? What would that cost on some of the other platforms that people are, for whatever reason, more comfortable using just because they're big names?
Yeah. So right now, the way that Jackal protocol works is we actually like set the price at the protocol level based on governance. So right now it's $8 a month per terabyte with 3 times redundancy. So you get 3 terabytes geo distributed with verifiable backups that auto heal for $8 a month per terabyte. If you want something similar with like an AWS type competitor, it's number one, you have to store like the terabyte first. So that's like probably around $28 a month. And then if you want redundancy, which is the standard when you're dealing with cybersecurity nowadays, is you want 2x redundancy or 3x redundancy. Then you have two other servers that are hosting that file. Now you're not just paying to store it once, you're paying to store it 3 times, and the ingress and egress against the servers. So the kind of comparable, you can be north of $200 a month per terabyte, depending on how much you use that data
Oh
on like
wow.
an AWS like competitor.
And egress refers to how much you're accessing it, how much you're recalling it. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So with a traditional cloud, it's not just when if you have redundancy and you have 3 forms of the files in different parts of the world, you upload it once and you pay for the storage there once. Then you pay for the storage in 2 other places, and then you also pay for the storage between those, like the ingress. So when data moves from one server to another server, you actually also pay for that, and when you download it, often you pay for that as well.
How do you pitch this to customers?
Yeah. So to an individual, it's the only cloud environment in the entire world where all your data is omnipresent and is exclusively yours. So the magic moment for an individual is they show up to a Jackal like Dropbox looking product, they upload their file and they realize that I'm the only person in the entire world that can access it. We can't even access it even if we wanted to. So from a security and privacy posture, when you have things that you really care about, and or you don't want businesses to kind of train on that data or sell that data, or you just kind of want privacy just being a fundamental human right for the individual. That's the value proposition to them. If I'm talking to a Web3 developer, if let's tell a story, right? If I'm building a NFT marketplace and I'm building it on Archway, for example, and I want to have decentralized storage and I don't want to have choke points of failure in my tech stack, I have 2 options to store those NFT files. I either get a Microsoft server and I pin the files to it via IPFS. That's option number one. Now you have the centralized choke point of failure. If you forget your credit card bill, all the NFTs are
Right.
gone. Everyone, chaos ensues, right? Option number two is I actually move my entire application. If I want true self-custodial decentralized storage, I have to pick up my entire application and then move to a monolithic storage L1. I'm like a Filecoin or Arrowweave. That's not very viable either because now you don't have liquidity, you don't have your community, and that's not great. Um, so the pitch to them essentially is now blockchains are good at a lot of things, but they're not good at storage. So the value proposition for that Web3 developer is with a simple smart contract call, now you have access to scalable decentralized storage so you can build web scale applications on blockchain rails. So that's the value proposition to them. And then if I'm talking to a business, that's Web2 maybe. They don't really want self custody. They want to be angry at someone if the files are gone. So what
Mhm.
they care about is cheap geo-distributed data storage that auto heals and is verifiable. That's something that doesn't exist on the market right now.
I keep everything on my computer. I
Of
bought
course.
a computer with like, I don't know, like 4 terabytes of storage. I just want to have it there. Could I have it set up where every time I make a video, I just put in the same folder and it can, or at least eventually be that folder every time I log into Jackal, it just automatically updates, or maybe it's set up on the back end where it's going to automatically back up my files.
Yes. So that's going to be
Mm,
100% completely possible. That's just when we start to get into like smart contract based accounts and abstracting the wallets away. Because when you think about
okay.
like Web3 products and everyone talks about like the UX, right? Um,
Yeah.
right now, our bottleneck is actually the wallet UX. So the wallet UX and the account abstraction and the ways that people interact with the protocol, that needs to get better over time. So the better that that experience gets, the easier it will be for us to integrate with products like that. But at the end of the day, we can our total addressable market right now for like end users is really determined by wallet UX and how many unique users are on that wallet. We could either once we kind of hit that position in our business where okay we've scaled it, it's as good as it possibly can be, either we have to use a third party tool for abstraction and making sure that the user experience gets better, or we have to build our own wallet. So that's kind of like going to be a crossroads that we're going to hit to just increase the user experience on the protocol in general.
What about transferring files? Is that possible now? Or is what I upload via my wallet only accessible to me and those private keys?
This is a killer use case for the Jackal protocol, actually. So right now, at the like command line level, you can do it, and the new UX that we're going to be coming out with, hopefully pretty soon, you can do it as well. So now it's not just storage, but it's also multiplayer mode, which is great. So you can peer to
Like
peer
Drive?
send like a drive. So you can peer to peer send files between parties without middlemen. This is something that doesn't exist unless you want to like get on a plane with like your I also want to say USB drive or a bunch of papers and then deliver it to you directly. It's the only other way right now that you can peer-to-peer transfer data without middlemen. So think about use cases, mergers and acquisitions, sending secure documents between parties. You can even
Yeah.
think about the
I'm
concept
thinking
of
like medical records. I work in education. There are a lot of
yeah,
sensitive files, believe it or not. And I guess we are all using this shared server. And if one of my coworkers uploads a doctor's note, emails it to my principal, that attachment automatically goes into this giant drive that I can see. You're saying with what Jackal's coming out with, or what you'll be able to do, privacy is maintained even though the files can be shared?
yeah, privacy is completely maintained. So let's look at what is like the killer when you distill Jackal down to its core. Like, what's the core value here? It's the cloud is one thing, right? Clouds are they come a dime a dozen right now. You can spin up your own
Yeah.
server and then just have that as a quote unquote cloud, like you guys are doing with whatever centralized server you have right now.
Mhm.
The killer application is using the blockchain as a permission system for who has what data, what time. So, what's a blockchain? It's a ledger of just who has what stuff. We did money, we did NFTs, we do lending, we do stuff
Mhm.
like that. But we see it as a way that we can increase cybersecurity and privacy posture, where only the end users with their private keys can access that file. So it's a really, really, really secure data permission system on blockchain rails. So that there's no middlemen at all. When there's no middlemen, there's no attack vectors. When there's no attack vectors, it makes it very difficult for cyber attacks or kind of attacks on privacy in general, right? When you remove middlemen from the cloud equation, it reduces the attack surface, which is pretty wonderful. And this is kind of also the reason why we're in the cybersecurity crisis in the first place. You can open up, you search cyber attack XYZ company. They happen quite often, whether it's internal attacks, whether it's external hackers, whether it's people that just have bad digital hygiene, maybe it's the way to use it. But at the end of the day, when you remove attack vectors, you can create a secure and more ethical cloud environment. When you can do that, now you have a situation where the only people that can access your files is if they physically harm you.
So Jackal's not just cloud. It's decentralized storage, right? And
Yeah.
one of the first tokens I ever bought was Siacoin, And it was along those lines. At the time, I didn't understand the blockchain part, but I thought, okay, this makes sense and it's an actual product. And those were
Yeah.
the tokens that I was trying to buy. Akash was one of the early tokens that I researched. I just couldn't buy it because, I didn't know how to use DeFi, right?
Mhm.
Um, Maybe you could explain as succinctly as possible, why is blockchain or crypto required to run your model of storage?
Yeah. There's a few things that are important in this question. Number one is, why is crypto and like having a token important?
Yeah, yeah.
When you look at kind of what is the purpose of having a token, it's really to bootstrap capex and automate opex. So when I say that, is we don't have any admin overhead and we don't run any servers from like the development entities that are building this. And the beauty of this is, if we wanted to compete head to head with the big cloud, we'd have to raise a lot of money, and like in the area of like billions of dollars to build data centers out. If you
Okay.
have the ability to bootstrap that capital expenditure, now you have ability to provide a product that is better from security, privacy, price, just ethics in general. And now you also have the ability to bootstrap the capex associated with that. So you can kind of have servers come online. You can call up data centers and they can plug in. It's kind of like Uber for storage in a weird way. So that's the
Okay.
big value of having a token in general, is to bootstrap a community, bootstrap the ability to actually have that capital expenditure. Cool thing about the blockchain is we can automate almost everything into the protocol directly. That would be admin overhead. So we don't need to have a point of sale. We don't have to do things like receipts because it's all on chain directly. It's just the user and the blockchain. There's no middlemen at all, including us. We just build. We're just engineers that build software. Um, what's beautiful about that is now we have the system that we have all kinds of competitive advantages, where we can offer it cheaper. It can be more ethical. It's all on chain. It's self custodial. Like, the security privacy posture is ridiculously high. So now all of those competitive advantages that previously wouldn't be able to come to the marketplace because of the barriers to entry and the moats of actually having enough money to build data centers.
Does this create a little bit of a challenge for onboarding? Non-native crypto people, maybe they have the most valuable data. My dad, my mom, whatever, maybe they, for some reason, they have the biggest need for storage. Are you going to be able to onboard those people? Do you have to onboard them? Are they not your target customers the way that your business is designed? Mobile support, seedless wallets, things like that, they have to be in the near future. Otherwise, I think crypto in general is in trouble.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So right now, like, our what we want to focus on is focusing on people that already get it, and that's a big enough market for us to attack right now. Period. So like the focus is we want to own our backyard before we start pushing into Web two. That doesn't mean that we don't already have Web two customers. We have telecom company in Iowa that's using it for backups. We're speaking with another company that's down in Chicago that's looking to use it for backups. Um, the At the end of the day, it comes down to, we want to own our backyard. We want to have blockchain developers that are building like the next era of applications to actually have it inherently built into their tech stack. That's first and foremost. And then after that, once we're able to capture that market, then we have to move into Web 2, because Jackal is only as good as the unique amount of data that comes onto the system.
How much of your capacity is being occupied right now?
So right now, of the like total capacity, the utilization ratio is about 19%. From
19%.
storage,
Okay.
yes, from storage purchase to storage actually stored.
How does
From the
that
capacity side,
compare? How does that compare to, let's say, competitors who are in their first like 2, 3 years of the business?
yeah, competitors on blockchain. So we surpassed Arweave in total storage purchased in January of this year.
Oh wow. Okay.
Filecoin, they are like, they're crushing it when getting data on board, but they subsidize it so much right now that it's almost free to store on Filecoin. But then again, like, their target market is cold storage archiving. Ours is more of a hot storage environment where the data is readily available. So they're kind of like different markets. Once you kind of push into like against Google and AWS, comparatively, they're moving data on a really really large scale for obvious reasons.
All right. And you said you want to focus on your own backyard, which are Web3 crypto users. That means people are already familiar with tokens, not and also DeFi primitives and all that. who should be interested in the token then?
Yeah. So the token is a medium of exchange for data storage, right? So the interest in the token is fundamentally driven by what is the demand for data storage on the Jackal protocol.
So it's
Um,
priced in Jackal.
Yeah, so even if you come with USDC, everything has to settle in Jackal because the storage providers and validators are paid in Jackal. So the validators are kind of like the OpEx, where it's just like they're the police of the network. Is the file being stored? Is the redundancy being maintained? Who has what tokens? Who has what files? That's all done by the validators, and they are paid out in Jackal. Storage providers is the same. So if they're storing a file and someone pays for a storage account and they have like a percentage of their total storage being stored on that machine, they get drip fed that throughout the duration of the actual storage deal itself. So everything has to settle, but we can take USDC as payment. We can take Arch tokens, or we can take Osmo, or we can take really whatever as payment. But at the end of the day, in the background, it has to be swapped for Jackal and it has to be settled in Jackal.
Is that how you onboard or plan to onboard businesses? Just businesses with a Circle account will be able to take advantage of Jackal without touching the Jackal token itself because of
Yeah,
USDC?
hopefully it's even better than that. So the payment rails is a big thing in crypto in general,
Yeah.
and having so is it going to be us that builds the payment rails, or is it going to be a third party that we're able to piggyback off that? I hope it's the latter because we don't really want to get into the
Yeah.
payments business. But at the
Probably the
like
same with the
it,
wallet too, right?
of course, we don't
Yeah.
want to get in the wallet business either because we just want to build like the best place to store data. Having those rails are really important, and it's really a question of when, not really if. And we our target market right now is Web3 developers in general, because they have applications that need to store data. Anything that's more than a few kilobytes, they can't do it at scale on chain, so they need a place to put that data, and they want it to be Web3 first, so it can be smart contract based. When you start moving into Web 2, like you can also look at the sales cycle, right? So when we go to try to sell Jackal to a Web 2 business, we have a big knowledge gap that we have to cross. First, we have to explain why blockchain technology is important, why this is a better security posture, and then hopefully
Mhm.
get a sale that way. Or we have to be custodial of the account on behalf of them. They have to pay us in US dollars, and we have to deal with the tokens on the back end. So that's kind of like more of like Wizard of Oz type type background where we're looking to provide a service at that point, and we don't really want to provide a service. We just want the payment rails to work. But when we're selling to a Web3 developer, they already get it and they already understand it and they already see the value proposition and the value added from the protocol. So when we sell to them, we don't have to do that big education piece. We can just say, hey, this is great for your business. It provides value in XYZ ways. And our hit rate on that is a lot higher. It's almost 80%, compared to like
Oh, wow.
two out of 100 when we were like interviewing and trying to get pre-orders from Web2 companies.
Most websites you go to it and you're like, "Am I on the dark web? Is there anything to click on? Who who is behind this? Is this illegal?" Like, if you go to some of the websites, they're horrendous. But anyway, let's
Right.
um let's talk about scaling. That's got to be really important for Jackal as we get, you know, further and further into what I would call like Web3 discovery by normies and also businesses as well.
Mhm.
Um, in your mind, we're halfway through 2024. Is there a collaboration and integration that you see in the next 6 months? Or we talked about Outpost a little bit before this,
Yeah.
or just or a catalyst in general that you think would be just absolutely tremendous for Jackal to at least become more recognizable and then
Yeah.
eventually lead to that scaling.
Well, when you look at scale and distribution of Jackal, the way that we like to do it is we don't want people to build on Jackal directly. Obviously, you can if it's a storage first application, but where people like to build is general purpose L1s, whether that's Archway, Neutron, Juno, Base, Arbitrum, Optimism,
Yeah.
Solana, things along these lines. Where if we want to, we have two options when it comes to scale. And we made the decision to actually come to them instead of trying to force them to come to us. Either we can fight those developers and users to actually leave their blockchain and build on top of Jackal's L1,
Yeah. Good luck.
or we can get more creative with the technology that we have now. And we're the first people to use this technology because it wasn't available previously. Is using IDC and using general message passing technology where we can deploy, we can morph all of Jackal's like blockchain modules into a smart contract. We can deploy it on another chain, and then people can do actions on that chain, and then Jackal does an action on their behalf, using messages. So Our end goal and the way that we like to do distribution in Web3 particularly is we want to have the ability to use Jackal on every single blockchain with a smart contract called locally. So you don't have to come to us. We're just there natively. And we're going to be doing our outpost on Archway. That should be coming in the next few weeks. And then after that, it's just balls to the wall and just deploying these outposts on every single compatible blockchain. And then once we get all those, then it's starting to move into EVM, it's starting to move into Solana, of deploying outposts there as well.
So, I mean, Cosmos, I saw a tweet and I'll bring it up, but it was Eric saying that what Jackal is doing is bigger than what Cosmos itself is doing. Deepin to me are the products. They're like Web 2.5 ish, right? They're not really they're Web 3, but they have elements of Web 2 in that they're functional, they make sense from a business standpoint, and they're just tokenized, right? And using validators. Um, how can Cosmos leverage this to make the ecosystem either more efficient, more profitable, or just make more sense?
Yeah. When I go to build a protocol, I look at it in risk frameworks, right? So when you look at like you're building a DEX or you're building an NFT marketplace, that playbook's already there, and it's like a single dimensional app. You build it, you deploy it, you can get profitability really quickly, and you can kind of get all those build, measure, learn feedback loops going extremely fast. Deepin's a different beast, right? You have all these different dimensions. You have the protocol, you have the custom modules, you have this other physical infrastructure network that you need to talk with the validator set, and they need like 5 things to get perfect for one thing to work. And that's the case
Mm,
for us at Cash. You can look at things like Sword Chain that are doing vehicle mobility and telematics stuff. It's really complex. It's kind of like comparing like an iPhone app type startup to like a deep tech or a biotech or like a SpaceX. It's a different level of risk being involved. But if successful, now you eat huge chunks of the market because you have all these competitive advantages that aren't served in the traditional market. With that, that doesn't mean that one is better than the other. One, they can both be equally as profitable, but one's just natively harder than the other and has a lot more risk. If I'm looking at a tech stack where to build this, I would argue that Cosmos is the only option because if you're building on top of another monolithic L1, you have this situation where you're waiting for them to ship scalability upgrades for you to ship your product, and now you have
yeah.
this other layer of risk of a third party actually being involved for your ability to be successful. We don't want that risk, so we chose to be completely sovereign on our chain. But since Cosmos is great and we have interoperability standards via IBC, this now means that we don't have to be isolated in our own chain. And it's not a
Right.
monolithic chain, it's more of a modular chain, and we can also deliver value cross chain. So I would argue that Cosmos is the only place to build these things. And that's why I think it's going to be really successful in the age of DeepIn because you can get so custom for the blockchain. It can be purpose built for a specific use case rather than being purpose built for all use cases. So that's kind of why I think that Cosmos is a good place to build it. Jackal being bigger than Cosmos itself. That's Eric. That's not coming from my mouth. But at the end of the day, we what we're looking to do is we just want to take back the internet in the sense that people should be self custodial of their data, and it's let's look at the long tail, right? We're becoming more increasingly online. We're thinking about brain interfaces. We're thinking about all these things, and where's that data going to be stored? Right?
Mm,
If we're going to be increasing online, our lives are completely online. And if a long tail with Neuralink and stuff like that, if our memory is online, we think that people should be self-custodial and have ownership over that data, or else it starts to strip away privacy and autonomy in the age of the internet, in my mind. So that's why I think it's important. That's why we're doing what we do. And if we fail, now we don't have privacy, we don't have autonomy. Cybersecurity is at the door, and all the data is in the hands of the few, and we don't think that's right.
well said. All right, we could talk about the your version 4. Um,
Yeah.
so I understand Jackal Protocol has an upgrade coming. What's changing on like the tech side of it, but also what will users notice differently?
Yeah. First and foremost, Jackal's going to be a lot faster.
Mm,
Jackal's going to have things like IPFS pinning, so we can integrate better, and we can have like kind of like a Web3 CDN on top of it. is going to have the ability for a bunch of economic changes as well, where kind of when you start a Cosmos chain, inflation has to be really high for you to bootstrap the network. But at a certain point, you have to grow up as well, right? And it's kind of more of a move to real yield, where we lower inflation. Storage payments come from more of a real yield type type product, where it's a little bit more sustainable and is built for the long term from that front. From the protocol level, it's all scalability upgrades, it's interoperability upgrades. We built all the outposts in V4 because it's just that much faster, that much better. So we need to ship V4 for the outposts to work as well. So it's a bunch of different upgrades kind of built into one. And we've been working on this upgrade for almost a year now of just
And
kind
the,
of all the things. It'll be faster, quicker, all that stuff.
once what's needed to build the outposts are complete and shipped, other chains, if they're permissioned, what will happen? Validators, it will have to go through governance to deploy on the chain. Is that why you're looking at Archway first, and then maybe some all-purpose permissionless Cosm chains?
Yeah. So Archway wanted it pretty bad, which was awesome, and they saw the
Mm,
value in it. When you're looking to be competitive as a general purpose L1, just a smart contracts, they all have like their little bit of they have a kind of a little bit of more of a niche for each of them. But when you have the ability of Jackal on a L1 that's general purpose to begin with, that is might be permissioned or permissionless, now you can build these web scale applications in verticals that weren't previously available in Web3. You can think AI/ML, you can think things where it was more deep and related, decentralized science, or just web scale applications for social, stuff like that. So if you want to be competitive, your L1 has to have better storage, it has to have better compute, and we deliver the storage side of that equation. So that is the value proposition for Archway, and that's why they're the first. And they saw the vision, they're excited about it, and they want their builders to have all the tools that they need to build awesome applications. For a permission chain, it's a little bit different, right? And each chain has their own value propositions. Like Store Chain, for example, they're
yeah.
looking to store a lot of data. So Jackal being having an outpost there and being natively integrated into their application is important to them. Stargaze, I could see following suit for
Yeah,
something really similar, right?
that makes sense.
Where
Yeah.
at the programmability level, it just makes a lot more sense. If you need decentralized storage, it's just available to all the developers or the
I noticed
application
on
itself.
your I noticed on your website you already have that partnership with Sorchain. Is there anything else coming that you could speak to the next 6 months, let's say either within the ecosystem or outside the Cosmos ecosystem?
Yeah, for us, we just want to be on every general purpose L1 in the Cosmos ecosystem first, and then all the products that are data heavy, they see the value. We want to be on those as well, whether that's an NFT marketplace, whether that's even just having chain state stored on Jackal or archive nodes, kind of storing files to Jackal as well for like all the blockchains. That's really important. After that, it's probably going to be EVM next for us. So we're going to be speaking with the union so we can get our outposts on the EVM blockchains too.
Yeah, so for you guys to put an outpost, it's not a simple problem of, "Oh, we just have to bridge." You would have to rewrite all the code in that
Programming
programming
language.
language. Is that right?
Yeah, the bridge isn't as much the issue. It's more just rewriting the outpost in Solidity or rewriting the outpost in like right now it's in Cosmosm, right? So having the ability to rewrite that, that's a big engineering effort on us to be compatible with all the chains. Bridging solution is a little bit different, right?
Mm.
It's we don't really focus on the bridging technology. We just use whatever is best available on the market at the time that we want to go to that blockchain.
What would you say to the people, maybe they're like me, we're Web3 competent, but maybe a little bit lazy. I let iCloud just automatically take my photos. I'm sure they copy it and share it with every government around the world. Um, what would you say to someone like me who should definitely, since we know how to navigate Web3, Jackal is something that we already use that service just with a different company. How do you onboard us?
I think it starts with just taking the most important files in your life and having a backup on Jackal is like the best thing for just individuals that are looking to start. The memories, the photos, there's been situations where Google Cloud will delete files and folders that aren't accessed within a certain amount of time, but you still think it's supposed to be there. There's also been situations where they accidentally delete files as well. Like there's a pension fund recently that had their entire drive nuked on
Great.
Google, for example. So having an ability that that's really not an option, and where we can't get rid of your data on our network, and you really have your own digital vault in a cloud environment on blockchain rails, where you are just completely self-custodial and it's exclusively yours. We think that's really important for like very, very important files that are important to you. So really the question is what's really important to you? Try to upload it to Jackal and have another layer of redundancy in your life for things that you just really don't want to live without.
Cool. No, I'm gonna try it out with some of my videos that are sitting on the hard drive waiting
Yeah.
to get corrupted. But I really appreciate all the info, man. There's a great conversation. We spoke like a year ago on a space,
Yeah,
and
I think so.
it kind of clicked with me because, like I said, I was interested in Coin, and I did look into Filecoin, and I remember even back then they were heavily subsidizing the network, and I'm like, Coin looks a little bit more like long term driven. They were never able to get their token under control, or I think proof of stake makes more sense than proof of work for something like this. I can't explain why, but I just think it makes more sense.
No,
But
it's the block times are faster, right? It just comes down
yeah,
to sometimes it's not being first to market, it's learning from everyone's mistakes. There's pieces of Coin in Jackal, there's pieces of Filecoin in Jackal, there's even like
mm,
some pieces of Airweave in Jackal, but we're able to kind of look at the market, see what technology has evolved within the last like 6 years, 5 years, and then be able to build something that's a lot more competitive. But at the end of the day as well, it's all different use cases. Filecoin's great for cold storage, putting data to rest, not
mm,
accessing it, stuff like that. Great use case. Downsides is you don't have privacy, so you have to like manage your own encryption keys locally and all this stuff. But they're all great products at the end of the day. Some of them are before their time,
mm.
but we're just here to really make sure that we have the best product possible with the technology available at the time. And it's a little bit almost want to call it last movers advantage in some ways.